God is the theme of this episode, or at least a big part of it. And he's the reason why we're all here, at least according to our beliefs. But what does Madonna think of all of this? That's what we're going to find out today on Turntables and Tea. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Cory.
And this week, I am so excited. I have been dying to do this. We will be discussing Madonna's 1989 masterpiece, Like a Prayer, one of my top 5 albums ever. I knew months in advance, like after we recorded the first episode, probably before we even recorded that, this was an album that I was desperate to discuss because there is so much going on and it's awesome. So I am super excited. Had so much fun diving into this one all over again.
Yeah, the dive was really awesome for me on this. I've always been, I won't use the word infatuated, but I've always been interested in Madonna's thought process, period, as an artist, as a mother, as all types of different things. So I always I always listen to the album first before I do any dives, no matter which album we do, right? And to dive in and see what she was going through, who she was, where she was at in her life. After listening to it one time, I'll straight say it totally flipped a lot of my thoughts on the album because I got to know a little bit more about her and about her process during this. But yeah, this dive was super interesting.
Yes. And it was at a really interesting time for Madonna. So with that being said, we're going to start with the background. So if you don't know who Madonna is, she's the highest selling female recording artist ever. And she started out big in the 80s. She's now been making music 40 years and up through 1987, nonstop, hit after hit, performance after performance, video after video, just pandemonium. But 1988 became her quietest year yet. She didn't really release any new music. She starred on Broadway in a play called Speed the Plow. It didn't do too well for her. She wanted to act, but people didn't want her to. She didn't get great reviews, but during all of this, she was still working on her 4th studio album, once again with Patrick Leonard and Stephen Bray, who had helped her out previously greatly on True Blue, in the case of Bray, Like a Virgin as well. But Madonna turned 30 in 1988, and she was in a different headspace than she was before. Her marriage to Sean Penn was falling apart. The divorce was finalized in early 1989. And she was getting more reflective, looking inward and thinking about her life at this crossroads. It was a really different time for her. And she knew that while she was growing up, so were her fans. So she wanted to create a more mature album and go into deeper thought process to create what would be her most personal album yet. And just go to another level with Like a Prayer, which is what the album ended up being called. And if you can't tell by the title, her Catholic upbringing heavily influenced this album, as did her early family life. And she really looked into that and expressed it in interviews at the time of the album and singles release. She was really just going in a different direction. And she also was really influenced by music of the past in the 60s and 70s when making the album. And much unlike a lot of popular music, this album used live instruments. Almost all the vocals were live completely too, which is impressive. And she did all of this while working in New York on a play. When she wasn't at the play, she would pretty much go to LA and hammer this recording out. But despite all of that, this could have failed. This was risky, but it didn't. This was yet another highly successful album for Madonna. It sold 15 million copies worldwide. 5 million of them are in the US. Topped the Billboard 200 for 6 weeks, and it was also immediately critically acclaimed. Critics said Madonna has shown herself to be a true artist. This is her best album yet, and she showed that she was the real deal.
Yeah, you want to talk about a checklist for introspection. You can go straight down and check them off. You are 30 years old. Who's That Girl didn't do what you thought it was going to do.
Oh, no.
You're on Broadway. And not getting a critical acclaim. You've outlived your mother. by 1 year as far as how old your mother was when she died. So many checks on that checklist of introspection, what a great time to write an album. And thankfully, what a great time to have a hit album, because everyone said it, but in my opinion, this really solidified her in her own mind. Reading a lot of her upbringing and how she felt and how she struggled inside her family and inside of herself and inside of the church. This was, no pun intended, but this was a godsend.
Yep.
So it was something awesome to see.
Yes, and to showcase this new side, interestingly, the album cover does not have Madonna's face on it. We see her holding jewelry and jeans with a button undone. This was photographed by Herb Ritz. This cover's actually gotten comparisons to the cover of Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones. I don't quite see that.
I immediately thought of it. It's funny you said that. That, and there's a Ween album, and I can't remember the name of the album off the top of my head, but same sort of cover with that midriff. This
was quite a thing for Madonna because obviously her image was so well known, somebody well known for her videos. Her face was on every other album cover up to this point, so it was different for her not to have it here. But she didn't need it, as we know. This was still a hit album. And there were two things of note when this album was first pressed on vinyl. One, the album was scented with patchouli oil, which is definitely a Catholic reference.
Really? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yes, and the other really notable thing that she did was in 1989, there was a disease going around called AIDS. It hurt a lot of people, but it particularly affected those in the gay community. And Madonna had by this point lost a lot of friends to AIDS from her days in New York, and she was thinking about it, even though she was a mega star and it wasn't a popular thing to talk about. So in the initial pressings of this album, she included a pamphlet on safe sex and condom use.
No shit.
Yeah, and that was a pretty gutsy thing to do in 1989 when so much of the world was still scared of this disease and thought it was just a gay disease. But Madonna had to show, well, even if it is, it's still serious and we need to address it. And the president of the United States hardly even addressed this disease, but Madonna did, and definitely became the most famous person of the 80s to speak out about AIDS.
That's amazing. I was a young man during this, but you could still feel the taboo around it until it became a popular vessel for celebrities and the likes to speak on it. It was super taboo, and almost, this was before the age of information where we're all connected. It was a lot of hearsay, a lot of terrible witch hunting tactics throughout it. But yeah, what a thought process. Another introspective for the checklist. And the divorce. I didn't even say the divorce. She's got a checklist a mile long to talk about on this album.
Yeah. Pat Leonard, the primary co-producer and writer of the album, said this album did take longer to make than others did because of the divorce. She was just devastated and it took her longer to work. But I would say it was worth the effort. I do agree with the consensus that this is her best album. A lot of people do feel that way. There's some other options that are commonly tossed around as well, but this is the one that takes the cake for me. I first heard this album when I was 10 and I checked it out of the library. I'd known some of the songs before that, the hits, but it's an album I've just continued to go back to time and time again, and I always find more to love.
Is this before or after Like a Virgin?
This is after Like a Virgin. Like a Virgin was 1984.
That's what I thought. Okay.
We are in a different era now for Madonna, and that all being said, I am ready to dive into this one. I'm excited.
Let's get at it.
All right. So track number 1 is the album's title track, Like a Prayer. You might have heard it. I hope you have. This was the album's lead single, and this is a pop song, but it was not like one Madonna had done before. If you couldn't tell by the title, there are a lot of religious overtones here. Madonna described it as about a girl so in love with God that it is almost as though he were the male figure in her life. And some people think it might be something else as well, particularly the line, I'm down on my knees, I'm going to take you there. Pat Leonard actually told her to remove that line because it could insinuate oral sex, but she said no. Probably purposely left the interpretation.
I can see that, but let me ask you this. If it was any other artist and that was the lyrics, do you think it would have been taken as we're coming off that edginess, we're coming off that sexual run for her? Do you think it was anybody else they would have taken arms against it? Because I totally disagree. I don't care how many times you read this song, go over it. If you're going to get hung up, and it's a Catholic mindset as far as praying, getting on your knees to pray. But I mean, it's literally talking about prayer on the knees. I ask you, do you think if it was anyone else, it would have been taken like that?
Probably not. And what probably wouldn't have been as widely analyzed if it were somebody else. So
most definitely agreeable. Well, analyzed, no way.
That's the main point here. It was more analyzed because this was the biggest artist doing it, pretty much. But like we said, this is a very religious song, even though it doesn't use Catholic music elements. Gospel is not really Catholic music at all. But the Andre Crouch Choir was used for this song to provide a backing vocal, and they did a phenomenal job. The recording for this song was pretty intense, but that was because Madonna really wanted it to be perfect. She knew this was something unlike anything she'd done before, and she really wanted it to be good. And she, at this point, had really come into her own and had instructions for her musicians on what she wanted them to do, which showed how far she'd come, because this is not somebody with formal music training. Madonna was trained in dance before she dropped out of college.
And you go back to Nyx and that album, Rock a Little, and see how many musicians and everybody, giant circus of an album, and the problems that could make. You got the total opposite here. You look at everybody that worked on this album, it might even be more musician-wise. And in my opinion, this album, and I'm going to probably say this 80 times going through, but this album is darn close to perfection as far as pop production.
Oh, I completely agree. And this song is the primary example of it.
Heard.
They really created an epic track with it. And she ended up going with Pat Leonard's production ideas. And the most notable musicians I saw on this track were, one, the bass guitar was played by Randy Jackson of American Idol fame, as we later learned. He's done a lot. And the opening guitar solo is played by none other than Prince. We'll be hearing about him throughout this album, actually. But he started off with a guitar solo to just signify the start of the song and the album, and it's one of his best. It's brief and just cuts to the point. It's awesome. And
were they close?
Madonna and Prince, they dated at a point in time briefly in 1985.
That was shit. I never knew that.
At this point, I think it was more of a professional relationship. They were the two biggest artists on their record label at the time. So, interestingly, Prince did not ever work with Mr. Jackson, but he did work with Madonna.
It's what made me think of it when I read how much work he had put in on this album. And they seem, to me, in my opinion, they seem at this point in their careers sort of the same kindred spirit across the board, introspective, not afraid to talk about things that are not necessary, that are taboo in the normal day-to-day conversation. So I was just curious.
Yeah. And interestingly, Madonna had eclipsed Prince in popularity by this point. That was not the case when she first started. Prince was in his 1999 Purple Rain run when Madonna first started, but by 89, she had become a bigger star and was making bigger hits at the time. This was definitely a bigger album than the Batman soundtrack he released that year.
Still good soundtrack.
Yes.
If we end up doing a movie month, that's one of the soundtracks I would pick.
Oh, yeah. It's still a great soundtrack. Still not his best. It's still not Purple Rain, but yeah, Prince is an underrated soundtrack king, but his only contribution to this song is guitar, so we're going to stop talking about him for now.
I heard that.
But anyway, This is one of the best songs of all time. This is a top 5 song ever for me. I never get sick of hearing it, and I just think it's brilliant what they did. They made a pop song with these religious overtones that really can make you think, but this also works perfectly as just a simple pop song.
And you've got a beautiful choir.
Yep.
That's not just here and there. They're featured throughout this whole song, with even one of them getting a vocal solo.
Yes.
Yeah. It's up there perfection wise. I'm right with you on. It's one of those songs I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that's like, oh, I hate that song.
Oh, no, I've never met anybody who doesn't like the song. Even people who don't like Madonna, I think, can even concede that Like a Prayer is a great song. I mean, that number ones column I read, this song was in it, and the writing of it was so well done, and the song being given a 10 even seemed too low after reading it, honestly. I shared it to the Facebook page. It really summed up well how brilliant this song is just by itself, and a lot of people loved it. This was a number one hit in 15 countries, topped the charts in the US for 3 weeks, and people immediately loved it, both the people and the critics. This was a song that just could not be denied. Now, I believe that this song would have been a number one hit no matter what, even if it had a simpler video. But you may know that was not what happened. So, I know quite a bit about this. I actually wrote a whole paper about the reaction to the Like a Prayer video and Madonna's Pepsi ad campaign my first semester of college. So,
really,
this is one of the most interesting events of Madonna's career for sure, how this all went down. So, in the beginning of 1989, January, Madonna signed a $5 million deal with Pepsi to star in commercials for them. This was a big deal, and they were going to sponsor her Like a Prayer World Tour. And their first commercial with her would feature the premiere of her new single, Like a Prayer. And the commercial itself was pretty simple. It featured a grown Madonna watching home movies, but also daydreaming and dancing to the song. And at the end, she sees a little girl, the younger her, about to blow out a candle, and Madonna says, "Go ahead, make a wish." Pretty simple commercial. It first aired during the Grammys of 1989 and was seen by 250 million people worldwide, which is an insane number. And it next aired on an episode of The Cosby Show, which I find ironic because it's interesting to see that Madonna was considered representative of America's moral decay in 1989 and not Mr. Cosby, but as time has told, it's the other way around.
Do you think that they could have left it right where it was with that video and not even gone on to make the other video? Because, I mean, it's a black and white dance, beautiful video, the Pepsi one. Do you think that she could have got away with not doing another video?
Oh, most definitely. I think the video would have still done well. I think this still would have been a number one hit. I think it would still have been well regarded. She looks great in it. I love her hair in it, especially. But Madonna did not want this to be the video. She wanted to do something more provocative and wanted to tackle racism. And she managed to do that. So she worked on this video with Mary Lambert, who also this year directed the film Pet Sematary, Stephen King adaptation. 2 major works this year, Stephen King and Madonna. Miss Lambert had worked with Madonna before. She directed 4 of her videos prior to this, including the clip for Like a Virgin, which was already a really famous Madonna clip. So it made sense that she would go back to a previous collaborator. And there's a lot going on in this video. If you haven't seen it, it begins with Madonna witnessing a murder and seeing a black man wrongfully arrested for it. She escapes to a church, and there is a statue resembling this man who was arrested. And she dreams that she's falling through space, which Mary Lambert suggested to represent sexual ecstasy. So that probably didn't help with people thinking this song was about sex, the sequence of the video.
Of course not. Well, that's interesting why Lambert would go on the record saying that because of the polarizing way this video came out. Go on. That's interesting to me. Why do that? If it's not a sexual song, why even say that?
Well, that makes me think maybe Madonna, I don't think she wrote it as a sexual song, but I don't think she discouraged that interpretation either.
Whew, man, I started this podcast off like, I'll tell you what, it's not a sexual song, and here we are.
Not surprising coming from the artists that we're talking about, but that's honestly the least controversial part of this video. So at one point, we see this statue come to life. Madonna kisses it. So this was interpreted as Madonna kissing Black Jesus.
Well, did they ever kiss on the lips? I mean, she kissed his feet, which is the way we've been told in the Bible that people greeted Jesus. I think he kisses each cheek, or no, he whispers in her ear. I could be wrong. And you wrote the gosh darn paper on it. So, but I mean, do they ever really kiss on the lips?
I think they do. I'd have to look it up again. That's really bad of me, but
no worries. And my bad for the curveball.
It's been like a week since I last saw the full video again because I've filled my head with all kinds of other stuff on this album. So
Heard.
I apologize for that if I'm mistaken. And she also at one point picks up a knife and the stigmata shows up on her hands. And at that point is when the choir starts singing. It's not the Andre Crouch choir. They objected to what was in the video. The most famous part is Madonna outside dancing in front of burning crosses.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that was after the guy came to her aid, or, you know, the lady who dies aid. But yeah, there was, I mean, you want to talk about stirring the pot. She flipped the pot over and poured it out. I mean, we're late 80s. You're going at religion. You're going at racism. Even the showing, in my opinion, the showing of the black statue of Jesus blew people's minds, because the mindset of America at that point was nowhere near conditioned. In my opinion, was nowhere near conditioned to see Jesus portrayed as a black man.
Oh, no, most definitely not. And yeah, this video was not well received. It premiered on MTV the day after the commercial aired on The Cosby Show, and this created some confusion for people because people were so up in arms over the video. They thought it was sacrilegious and horrible, and what is she doing? She's horrible. And many religious groups, most notably the American Family Association, called for a boycott of Pepsi because they were doing business with Madonna. And Pepsi at first wanted to keep the campaign going. After all, they'd spent a lot of money on Madonna. And to be fair, the commercial was not the same as the music video. However, the protests eventually did get so intense that Pepsi decided to discontinue their campaign with Madonna, and they actually paid her the $5 million because they wanted to wash their hands of the controversy.
Was the tour over at this point?
So the tour had not even started.
But did they keep their name on the tour?
No.
You can't tell me, or, you know, you can tell me, but I'd be hard pressed if you told me that nobody in Pepsi knew what was going down with that video. Unless Madonna, and you might be able to shine some light on this, maybe not, but unless Madonna totally kept it out of like super hush hush, there's no way Pepsi didn't know another video was coming out.
I mean, I think they may have known another video was coming out. She did say she wanted to do another video.
Heard.
I don't think they knew what would be in the other video. I think that was the issue.
I was in Catholic school at the time, and I remember the polarizing effect of this video and how things just, I mean, she was branded the devil for a long, long time in small American communities, in my opinion. And it ultimately only led more to her popularity with the teens, you know, with the kids, with people that were looking to shun these ideals. But I remember it like it was yesterday, man. Nobody. You weren't allowed to listen to that. You better change the channel if the video comes on, type of thing.
Yeah, and the video still played a lot. There were calls for it to be banned, but it still got played a lot for years afterwards, actually.
MTV and VH1 knew, no way we're going to stop this. This is, regardless of how it's taken, people are going to stop. They're going to watch it. They're going to act like they didn't watch it, and they're going to watch it 2 more times.
Yeah. People couldn't take their eyes off of it, and all the controversy just helped put Madonna's name out there, which is, I'm sure, what she wanted circa 1989. It was so intense that even Pope John Paul the next year called for a boycott of her concert in Italy, largely due to this video.
Did he really?
Yes.
Come on, John Paul. All right. I mean, that's surprising, but
yeah, I do think the point of the video was widely missed, but at the same time, Madonna likes to stir the pot, and she definitely did that and more with this music video. In a classic Madonna moment, at the VMAs in 1989, the Like a Prayer video won the Viewer's Choice Award, beating out artists such as Neil Young and Michael Jackson. And in her speech, she thanked Pepsi for causing so much controversy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh man, I can only imagine the tactics that were going on behind the scenes here from the church, from Pepsi. Oh, heard that.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating episodes of Madonna's career, easily. And before we move on from this song, so another really interesting thing about this album is actually the remixes of some of these singles, because she began working with this guy, Shep Pettibone, for remixes, and he did a quite different remix of Like a Prayer that's pretty epic in its own right. The full version runs for almost 8 minutes, and I love all of it.
Wow.
But it features some of the Latin percussion that was originally to be featured in the song, but not in the final version. And just really interesting to see how the song changed, yet still maintained its essence. The Like a Prayer remixes were finally made available on streaming a year or two ago, because Madonna rejoined Warner Brothers and has put a lot of her old remixes up. Thank goodness.
I was going to get to that later, because we're talking about numbers back in Stevie Nicks, and I was looking at the numbers on Spotify, and I wonder if you knew, because the numbers on this album are so much smaller than I would expect from an album of this magnitude.
Well, some of that has to do with not really remixes. I think some of that has to do with the fact that the big hits on this album were featured on compilations in the future, because the song Like a Prayer, the version, it's the same version as on the album. The one with the most streams on Spotify is from the 2009 Celebration Greatest Hits album. That's really the only reason why it's split, because these songs are featured on 2 different hits albums.
Okay, that makes sense.
Soon to be a third, actually. Madonna has a remix compilation coming out shortly, so makes it a perfect time to do this episode.
Cool.
And in addition to the fact that her birthday is tomorrow, as of the day we're recording this.
No shit. All right, there you go.
This was a perfect time to do some Madonna.
All right.
But we have gone on about the title track for quite a while. We could do a whole episode about it, but we're not going to. We still have 10 more songs to get through.
Let's go.
So, track number 2 is Express Yourself. This is a female empowerment anthem that is funky. I love this song too, but this is interesting. A tidbit about this song actually came out just this year when Jennifer Grey, who you may know from Dirty Dancing, released her memoir this year, and for a while dated Matthew Broderick, but she broke up with him and was friends with Madonna. They were in a movie together called Bloodhounds of Broadway, and Jennifer Grey claims that Express Yourself was inspired by her breakup with Matthew Broderick.
Wow, it's a bold statement.
It may have been a little bit, may have also been inspired by Madonna's own travails. I think it's possible, because she's definitely in hit writing mode here. She wasn't really in confessional mode so much as she is, I'm going to write a hit.
Yeah.
And that was what she did with this song. This song is, again, really funky, heavily influenced by especially Sly and the Family Stone.
She said it was like a tribute to them almost, right?
Yeah. Which
you can see it. Horns right off the bat. Rally. I mean, it's a rally song straight off, you know. I mean, she's telling you to listen. Like, come on, girls, here we go. Listen up, you know. It's a beautiful driving track for a second track on the album, too.
Yeah, and when I first heard this album, I remember being pretty surprised to hear the album version because I first heard this song on the Immaculate Collection, which uses a remix, and the remixes of this song are quite different from the album version, actually. And that's kind of why this is so interesting, because it was pretty unprecedented for a remixer, in this case, Shep Pettibone, to pretty much do away with the majority of the song as it is and create a new backing track.
Oh, really? I have to check that out.
No, he pretty much did that because the remixes, even the version featured in the video, you see horn players in the video for the song, but you don't hear the horns because they're not in most of his mixes of the song.
Taking the horns out of the song, that's tough for me.
No, I actually completely agree with you because I'm going to say this now. When I listened to the Immaculate Collection as a child, Express Yourself was not one of my favorite songs on it. But once I heard it on the album, I loved it because I'm like, I love those horns. They are so integral to the song. And there are other people who disagree with me and think those remixes are better. The best remix is the mix that he did with the original track that just punches up the horns a bit. And fortunately, it's available to stream. But the album version of this song gets unfortunate crap. It shouldn't, because it's awesome, and I prefer it to most of the remixes, because this is a soulful song, and it needs to be.
Definitely contender for our favorite song on this album.
For me, it's easily the title track. I'm not going to shock anybody by saying that. I already said it was a top 5 song of all time, but this is an awesome song, too. It kicks ass. And yeah, this wasn't just the second song. It was obviously the second single, because this was obviously a hit. There was no denying it. And it peaked at number 2 in the US behind, for 1 week, If You Don't Know Me By Now by Simply Red. And for the second week, Toy Soldiers by Martika. Pretty crazy to think of in hindsight, considering Madonna had more hits on this album than either of those two artists did their whole career.
Yeah.
And wrong, I like Toy Soldiers, but it's not Express Yourself.
No, and whenever I hear these ones that blow me away and say, how did it not make it up there? I go back to the thought of the power of pop radio and the monster behind it, and that's selling and doing things. So I think I'd chalk another one up to the old pop radio pulling it back. That's why when you say that it won Viewer's Choice for the video, that's a triumph right there in my eyes. Even in that they let that go through is a triumph, but to have the viewers say, all right, enough with all that. We're back in this.
Yeah, I mean, the actual video of the year was actually This Note's For You by Neil Young, which makes no sense, honestly. He was not quite on the pulse of pop culture in the late 80s, let's just say that. He never really has been, but especially then. But speaking of music videos, the video for Express Yourself was not as controversial as the one for the title track, but it set a record at the time. It became the most expensive music video ever made. Budget of $5 million. Wow. And it was directed by David Fincher, who started off as a music video director, but went on to direct films such as Fight Club and Seven. He's a big deal as a director, but he started off doing music videos, and this is a good one. So the theme of the video is also female empowerment, but it's set against a metropolis backdrop. And we see these steel workers as well, and some real gender-bending images from Madonna. At one point, you see her in a pinstripe suit with lingerie underneath of it, and grabbing her crotch like Michael Jackson. And there's a lot going on in this one plot-wise, too. We see her with a black cat. The cat disappears, but returns at the end to one of the steel workers who Madonna ends up making love to after she's unchained from her bed. There's a lot going on in this video, but the main point of it is really Madonna's a sexy boss-ass bitch in Metropolis. It's a $5 million backdrop, and she's going to look great doing it. It's just awesome to look at, honestly. It is a true work of art. Madonna's the queen of the music video, and even without the controversy, a video like this just shows why, because of the artistry involved with it.
She tried to fight him on the Black Cat thing too. That interview that you sent me, she was saying like it's such a little film school or a novice take on it, but ultimately he got through to her.
No, and her licking the cat's bowl is one of the most famous images of the video. And many of Madonna's videos have gotten HD remasters recently on YouTube. Not this one. Get on that, Warner Brothers. That needs to change.
Get on it.
The remix used for the videos wasn't my favorite. I wish it would have been the original with the horns more prominently featured. But his mixes are pretty cool, and they're definitely a precursor to the house sound of the 90s. And Pettibone played a big part in Madonna's career at this time and for the next few years. We'll actually be talking about him a bit later in the episode. But before we move on, I do have to mention one thing. This song made headlines again in 2011 when Lady Gaga released a song called Born This Way, and many people noted sure sounds a lot like Express Yourself.
Oh, shit, it does.
Yeah.
I never had that thought before, but you're darn right.
Oh, this was all over the media, I felt like at the time. I heard about it a lot. And the following year, when Madonna was promoting her 2012 album MDNA, she was asked about it in an interview, and she called the song reductive, which was a way of saying it was lesser than... She was saying Born This Way was lesser than her song. And when she went on the MDNA tour, Madonna performed Express Yourself and sang part of Born This Way over it. Oof. Which I love. That's brilliant shade. I love Gaga. I just saw the Chromatica Ball tour, which was amazing, but they are very similar songs. But fortunately, Madonna and Gaga are on good terms now, as far as we know. So,
what a weird stance to take, to call it reductive and then be like, all right, I'm going to put it in the middle of Express Yourself, No,
she was doing it to show that it was reductive.
But no, I see the shade element in it. Go on, Madonna. Chill out, Madonna. Leave Gaga alone on that one. You inspired another great pop iconic hit. So just be happy.
Yeah. I do think Gaga has better, more original songs than Born This Way, though. Not going to lie. But
of course.
Lady Gaga is awesome, though. I'm not going to deny that. Definitely an awesome artist in her own right. And she's, I think, gone well past the Madonna comparisons and tracked her own path.
Now, she has now. Here's a hot tea take for you. Would Lady Gaga have ever been able to do what she did, meet suit and all that, without Madonna leading the way in that? No.
And it's not just Gaga. Madonna set the blueprint for just about every female artist since her in any genre.
Rightfully so. It's Madonna.
It is the truth. Her influence just cannot be denied. And there's many women who she did influence who I love as well. But realistically, they don't call this lady the Queen of Pop for nothing. She paved the way for a new era, which was the MTV era. She set the blueprint.
She did.
And this is one of the albums and eras that she set the blueprint, when possibly the one she did it the most with, actually.
That's why you give her $5 million to do a music video. I mean, we're talking back in the early 80s, but the budget for Star Wars special effects was $2 million. So, I mean, we're not that many years past, and $5 million on a music video. It speaks for her. It speaks for the whole entire thing.
Oh, yeah. And so, with that being said, enough about Express Yourself. We're on to the first non-single on the album, Love Song, and it's a duet with our friend Prince. Shows up once again. When I first heard this song, I really didn't care for it, but it's grown on me with repeated listens.
It's not that I don't care for the song, because agreeable, when I've listened to it over and over again, it's a great song. What I have to say about this song is, in my opinion, it's a Prince track with Madonna on it. It's not a Madonna song. I had a tough time trying to figure out where it fit in on this album. That's another reason why I asked you if they were close, because it would make more sense to me. But I know they wrote it together. It's a Prince track. I just thought it was odd that he got this on her album.
I mean, Madonna definitely wanted to work with him, but she admitted that she only actually met with him to record it one time because he always recorded in Minneapolis and she hated it there. It was too cold. And so they just sent tapes back and forth. There isn't a whole lot of chemistry on this duet. I'm not going to deny it because they weren't singing it together. It makes perfect sense. However, there's one thing that I really appreciate about what she did here, because you would expect the Madonna and Prince song to be really over the top and bombastic. This song isn't really, but I feel like that was kind of the point she was trying to make. Like, by the way, I can make something a bit artsier, even with a megastar like Prince, who was critically acclaimed more so than Madonna, and make it work.
Yeah, it makes sense, too, that both of their edginess precedes them for both artists in the public eye, in my opinion. So that's a bold statement. Like, hey, look, you know, we're both in your face, but we can sit back for a minute. That's a cool statement to make with this.
And interestingly, the line "time goes by so slowly" in this song was later used for Madonna's 2005 classic "Hung Up," which I also love. This was not a single, but Madonna wanted it to be. She asked Prince to do a video for the song, but he said no, he just wasn't going to do it. It wasn't that he didn't like the song. He just was not interested in doing a video for it. And I think that's for the best. I feel like this would have underperformed as a single for sure. It's not a single. It's a good Prince song. That's what it is.
Yep. No hard feelings, Madonna, but it's a straight up Prince song.
I mean, it's still a chance to hear two of the biggest stars of the 80s collaborate. That's awesome. But
it's neat to hear her voice on that Prince, like, minor filled composition as well.
Yeah. Still a cool song, but it's a Prince song on a Madonna album. Not going to deny that. But now we're not going to hear from Prince again for a while on this album. He'll show up again towards the end. But in the meantime, we have track 4, "Till Death Do Us Part." This is the divorce song of the album. It's about a really chaotic marriage. The husband is pretty clearly Sean Penn. She has claimed in recent years that Sean Penn never hurt her. I don't believe that. There were police reports that said otherwise, but they are friends these days. So she's denied it. But this song was another one that shocked me to hear because I remember reading the Wikipedia for the album before I heard it. And I heard what the song was about. I would have expected like a really somber ballad. That's not this at all.
My exact notes is the speedy tempo of this song hides the anger and sadness until you really listen to what's being said. It does not sound like an angry/sad divorce song if you're listening to the musicality of it.
No, but it works in presenting the chaos of the situation, and that glass breaking at the end just sums it up. It builds to a climax so perfectly. It's awesome. I adore this song.
Yeah, this is the perfect start of the introspectiveness of this album, in my opinion. You know, this is where she's getting some of her skeletons out of the closet, or her demons. You know, she's getting them out there. And the first one she chooses to share with us is this chaotic, you said it best, chaotic marriage to Sean Penn.
I will say one thing about this song. This is definitely the most 80s sounding song on the album. I feel like this is a pretty timeless album for the most part. I feel it still plays pretty well today. This one definitely sounds like it's in the 80s, but I don't use that against it at all. I still think it's an awesome song, and just, yeah, this is one of her best. I adore this song.
I have another track in mind for the one that really screams 80s to me. I also have a note in here that says, I'd love to hear Gwen Stefani cover this song. It screams Stefani. It was the start of it. It just the way the music played out. But I was like, oh, it sounds like it could be a Gwen Stefani song. So
I hear that in my head right now, actually.
Yeah. So Gwen, I know you listen anyway, girl. So
yeah.
All right. Let me know. I'll help you out. We'll get it done.
Yeah. Do the Cher route, Gwen, and do a Madonna covers album like Cher did with ABBA. I'd love that.
Oh, that would be sick. That would actually really be sick.
And include Till Death Do Us Part, please.
I'll give her a holler.
Oh, yeah. Let your baby mama know.
I'll let her know.
Good. But if she does that cover album, I would be surprised if she did this next song, because we're on to a heavy one now. Track 5, Promise to Try. This is the end of side 1. We're nearing the end of the vinyl cassette era, really, here. So this was also made for a CD. This song serves as a note to Madonna's younger self about her mother who died of breast cancer when she was only 5 and who she was named after. Her mother was also named Madonna. And she's telling the little girl, don't forget her face. And this is a piano ballad with a small orchestra. And it's chilling. I only ever listen to this song when I play the whole album, and it's not because it isn't a good song, it's because it's so depressing.
It is the closest I've come to tears listening through an album in a long time. Going back, reading it, and listening to it over and over again, man, it's a tough one. It's written so beautifully. I almost get a sense of like a child talking in the beginning, and then at the end, the mother saying like, don't let the memories mess your brain up. Don't forget the smile. It's a beautiful piece. I'm so glad you said it, because I couldn't find the end of first side, second side. And you're saying this is the ending of the first side?
It is, because I have this album on vinyl.
It's a fitting ending. It is it's a chilling song, like you said. But that soft piano almost by itself, just slightly accompanied by that small orchestra. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful one. This is Purge the Demons #2. This is the next one she shared with us, and right after the Sean Penn on the album Scope. You know, we've gone through 2 of the major introspective check marks on her list so far.
Yeah, and this was a big one. And she did eventually write more songs about the loss of her mother, but this one's still the best of them. It's hard to top this one. The only bad thing about this song is that it unfortunately soundtracked a really awkward scene in Truth or Dare when she visited her mother's grave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty uncomfortable to watch, actually, but Madonna did whatever she wanted in 1990, so...
Hey, and plus, great music makes you feel even if you don't want to, so this is a perfect example of that.
Yes, but where Promise to Try makes us feel sad...
If you want to stay up to date with the messiest drama on the internet, or what about those crazy viral challenges, then be sure to tune in to TMZ Verified, the podcast. I'm Wild.
I'm Steph.
And each week we're either breaking down the spicy viral stories, or we're hanging out with the most popular influencers around. Tana Mojo is in the building.
I don't even know if they're hating. They're probably just telling the truth, but we love the haters too.
Sophia Franklin.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk, but let's be real with each other, you know?
Bryce Hall is here, y'all. Make some noise, people.
I'm single, by the way.
Right.
So if you like viral drama, influencer culture, and just overall hot messiness, check out new episodes of TMZ Verified every Thursday right here on Spotify.
The next song will make you feel joy, fortunately. Cherish. This is a love song in the vein of Madonna's single True Blue, which is also an awesome song, but I think this one's even better. It's very influenced by 60s music. There's multiple retro song references, most notably the song Cherish by The Association. You also hear Burning Love in there, and a lot of references to Romeo and Juliet, because I bet they never felt this way.
Yeah, she felt the same way. For me, hot tea take. This is the most perfectly produced and pop/light pop song on this album. As far as perfection, I mean, even with the whole entire floor dropping out at 3 minutes and 50 seconds and building back up from just an a cappella and then a small drum, phenomenal. I pictured this one performed live, and I don't know if it was a banger live or whatnot, but this was one of the ones where I'm like, I could see this going on for days live.
So you brought up 2 points that I'd like to mention. So first, that a cappella part was sung by somebody pretty interesting, actually, Marilyn Martin. She had worked with both Stevie Nicks and Phil Collins at this point. In fact, she duetted with Phil Collins on a #1 hit called Separate Lives.
Get out of town. Heard that.
Yeah. And she earlier recorded a track for one of her albums that was written by Madonna called Possessive Love, which I think is pretty cool. But she did the a cappella part on this song. And as for live performances, Madonna did perform this song on the tour for this album, which ended up being the Blonde Ambition tour, which is legendary in its own right. It was a pretty cute performance, pretty similar to the video where 3 of the dancers were dressed as mermen. And she even mimed playing the harp a bit. But here's the sad thing. As much as we love this song, Madonna hates it.
No shit.
She absolutely hates it. She once said in an interview that some of the songs she thought weren't good ended up being hits. And this was the song that she mentioned. And she actually used the R word to describe it, which I do not like at all. Shame on you, Madonna, for that. And also, you're completely wrong. You're right. Cherish is pop perfection. And it still fits on this album because it's influenced by the music of her childhood, I think.
Heard.
And no, this is a perfect, pure pop song. Oh my goodness. It's wonderful. Whenever I want to need a pick-me-up, I'll just listen to Cherish a few times in a row. I never want it to end. It's so good.
Yeah, that's that perfect pop of that. It's got an infectious hook. I mean, it is that perfect cocktail. You drink it up until you've had too many.
Yeah. There's also an extended version of Cherish that goes on for 6 minutes that I love too, because fortunately, this is a song that I can't get enough of. So
there you go.
Yeah, I've always loved this song. I first heard it on the Immaculate Collection along with Like a Prayer and Express Yourself. I've always enjoyed this song a lot. Always been one of my favorites by Madonna.
And she hates it.
And she hates it.
It's so wild. I was not expecting that one.
Yeah, I don't agree with her at all on that. But fortunately, a lot of other people liked it too. So this was the 3rd single from the album, and it made it up to number 2 on the Hot 100. It was blocked by Janet Jackson's Miss You Much, which makes more sense than the songs that blocked Express Yourself from the top.
Most stuff.
But I wish they would have split the time at the top. Cherish is awesome. And it's cool that this was such a big hit, even though it sounded nothing else like what was on the radio at the time. But, oh, what a great song. And as I said before, the video for the song was mermaid themed, and it was shot in black and white and directed by Herb Ritz, who was a great photographer. He photographed the album cover and the shoot for the album, but Madonna wanted him to do the video, and he said, well, I don't know anything about film. And she said, well, you'll find out. And so we went to Hawaii for 2 weeks and practiced on a Super 8 camera, and then he came back to do the video. And it was still a pretty video, not quite as out there as the previous 2, but it did what it needed to do. It's cute. I like the whole vibe of it, and it fits the song well. Yeah, this is why she's the queen of pop, because you can write a song like this.
Yep, that's real.
Yeah, and she actually wrote this song in her makeup room when she was on Broadway.
Heard that.
I mean, I don't know. I've never had such a burst of inspiration in a dressing room, that's for sure.
I was whistling this song on the way to come down to record this. It's real shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it sticks in there.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll be in a dressing room at Old Navy or something and I'll come up with the next Cherish, but I don't foresee that happening. But before we're done talking about Cherish, I have to say this. So when I saw Madonna live for the first time on the Rebel Heart tour, she did an acoustic ukulele version of this song's predecessor, True Blue. Gave me a tiny bit of hope that one day she might do Cherish again live because they're similar songs. I think that would be a great arrangement for it. So, Madonna, just do Cherish again live. I don't care if you hate it. The fans love it. I know I'm not the only one who loves it. Just please do it. Just stop with that Cherish hate.
Stop it.
You're wrong. In that regard, you are completely wrong. But she was right when writing the song, so that's what matters. So
there you go.
Yay, Madonna for Cherish. A for me.
A for me.
And now, we're up to your beloved track 7.
Yeah. What a wild one. What a wild one for 7.
So this track number 7 is called Dear Jessie. Madonna wrote this song actually for her producer's daughter, Jessie, which I think is really sweet. And this is very, sounds a lot like a children's song. And it has a message about not growing up too fast. When I first heard this song, I hated it. I thought, what the hell is this doing on a Madonna album? This is a lady who likes to push buttons. What's she doing singing a song about pink elephants and lemonade? Like, what? But then I realized, oh, she actually kind of has a point. And then I liked the song okay. And I actually do like this song. I'm guessing that you're not the biggest fan of this one.
Musically, it has some cool ideas in it. It's like, I was blown away by how this made it on the album. It's Disney sounding to me. I'm so happy that you just told me that it was written for a little kid. Then let it, maybe you loved it, but let it go to that little kid. Like this one for me, it's just, there's nothing to it. There's nothing to it. We literally talk nonsensicalness, and I'm all about never growing up Peter Pan style of life. But I mean, for this one, it was, my note was the first one on the album that's not for me. And usually there's a few on these albums. She's been killing it. And then we popped Dear Jessie on there. And you're telling me that this opened up? No, Cherish opened up the second side. Thank God.
It did.
Thank God. Because this as an opener for the second side, I wouldn't have listened to the second side, like day one when you buy it. But yeah, not for me. Not for me.
So
totally unexpected too, like you said. Like this is coming out of Madonna.
Yeah,
maybe if she was on a little bit of acid or something, I could see it. But as far as a one for me to stay in this mindset that she's put us in on this album so far, it just seems so contrived.
All right.
My bad. I mean, coming hard on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a song for everybody, but I have come to enjoy it over time. And really, so I'm not the only person who thinks this, but this song reminds me of the Beatles a lot.
No shit.
I mean, think about it. Yellow Submarine, Octopus's Garden. This is in that vein. Kind of.
I mean, I can understand where the line could be connected there, but this one for me, and that's why I guess I didn't enjoy it. I've listened to it at least 5 times. It just is. It doesn't make sense the way Octopus's Garden or Yellow Submarine had a cohesive thought. This one is just all over the board, and we say pink elephants how many times? And I don't know. Maybe it'll grow on me over the years, but this one definitely won't. And I'm not gonna bite on the Beatles. No way. Not for me. Not for me. Sorry, Jesse. Not on this one.
Well, quite a few people in the UK and Ireland actually like this song. It was a top 5 hit there.
Get out of town.
Yeah, this was a single outside of North America, which is honestly pretty surprising. I do like the song, but I don't see it as a single. But no, it's a single, and a video was made for it.
A video was? Are we talking about the same song? Am I on a prank show right now? Am I on candid camera? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It features Madonna as Tinkerbell. It's almost all animated.
And here I am. It sounds Disney. I guess if that's what you're going for and you wanted to do that, it hits the mark. It just didn't feel at home on this album. This album is powerful as hell. And this one was like, all right, maybe a palate cleanser.
I think sequencing wise, it probably was, because it's right after Cherish, which also was. And
going into the next track. Yeah.
Going into the next track, I was about to say, because the next one is not a kid's song. This is not a Disney song we're doing. Not even Simba could have sung this one.
Shit, man, this is a tough track. This is a very, very personal track.
Yes. Oh Father, it's called. We didn't say the name yet.
That's right. Yeah. Oh Father. I mean, not as chilling to me as Promise to Try was, but way more powerful.
I agree. It's because musically it's not quite as stripped back, but
true.
I do listen to this one more than Promise to Try. This one, this is such a crazy song. So Madonna has given a couple different explanations for what this song's about. at first she said it's about her father, which makes sense. But another time she said it's really just about male authority figures in general, including her father, her husband, and I believe God, obviously. Yeah, this is a really powerful song about her relationship with her father because when she was young after her mother died, her father was not the same, obviously. And she didn't understand the change in him because she was so young. And then a couple of years later, he got remarried to a woman named Joan and ended up having 2 kids with her. And Madonna didn't get along too well with Joan. I don't think a lot of the siblings did, but Madonna especially did not see eye to eye with Joan. And she felt emotionally neglected by her father. And this song actually makes it sound as though she was hit by her father. She has said that she was not, but she's using it to make a point that she felt really hurt. But she's also now, as an adult, seeing it from his side, which I think is really impressive. And this song, it's been interpreted as both an indictment of her father and a love letter to him. I think it's a bit of both.
She is a mother, correct? She has a child.
Madonna has 6 kids.
6, wow.
She's adopted 4 kids from Malawi.
Was she a mother at this point?
No.
Okay.
So she's still very much the child here. She is not a mother yet.
But she's hitting that 30, that milestone.
Yeah.
Whether it's society telling us the milestone or just our natural perception of our own lives, it's one that'll take you back for a second. So to see it from the other side, that's a neat way to look at this song.
Yeah, and interestingly, unlike a lot of the songs here, she recorded this song in New York City. She recorded it in a small studio in the Garment District while she was on Broadway. And she said that her main musical influence for this song was Simon and Garfunkel.
I don't know if I hear that, but I can see maybe the storytelling aspect of it. It's a very straightforward and well-told story inside of this song.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, hot tea take here, I like this song better than anything by Simon and Garfunkel.
It's a hot tea take, it is. It's tough to say there.
Sorry, Bridge Over Troubled Water. I like Oh Father better.
You're telling me that you think Madonna is better than Scarborough Fair? No, I'm playing with you.
I was about to say, I think it is, but...
Yeah, no, this is a tough track though, man. And this is my number 3 for purging and introspective and sharing with us,
Right there with you. And interestingly, you talk about the story. The story came to life beautifully in the video for the song. So this was the 4th single for the album in North America. And unfortunately, but perhaps not surprisingly, it did not become one of Madonna's biggest hits. It only peaked at 20 on the Hot 100, and it broke a streak for her because from Lucky Star up to Cherish, Madonna had 16 consecutive top 5 hits on the Hot 100. And this became the first one to miss not just the top 5, but the top 10 since 1984.
It doesn't strike me as a single, period. I was surprised when you sent me the video because I don't believe I had ever seen it. And it didn't seem like a track through the listens that she would make a video for. It's an awesome, beautiful video, and it sticks with this song so perfectly. But I don't know if I hear a single here.
I wonder if it was released as a single just so she could make the video, honestly.
Heard, maybe
because
so.
This isn't a hit. I mean, Madonna had put out a couple ballads as singles before this, and they had topped the charts, but one of them was Crazy for You. That's a love song, and Live to Tell is more vague than this. This is a lot more specific, and they were also both realistically soundtrack songs. This is not, but the video is gorgeous, and it's shot in black and white, once again directed by David Fincher, and we see Madonna as a young child. There's a young girl who loses her mother and argues with her father about it, and we also see adult Madonna under a dead tree in the snow. We see her at the confession box, which underlines the Catholicism in all of this, and we see the girl go to her mother's grave and her funeral with the shot of her mother's lips sewn shut. And I have to say that shot is just so real because I don't think they would do that today, but that was done back then. And really, seeing a dead body for the first time, it's a pretty formative memory for a child.
Of course.
Because I remember when I was 11 and saw my grandmother in the casket, that was really disturbing for me. And this video sums up how disturbing that is. And I think that's cool that it was done. And Madonna reunites with her father at the end of the video at the gravesite, which I think shows that despite all of this, we can still come together. It underlines the hopefulness that I think still slightly in the song. I think it's an amazing video. Definitely one of her best and most underrated pieces.
The hopefulness, and it struck so much more for me when in the video you finally see her. It's a panning from left to right, standing next to her father at her mother's grave, and then it pans over to her being a small child again. That hopefulness is still there, and like you said, it popped up right there in the video as well.
Yeah. And I also have to say, I love her vocal on this song. It's not that technically the best vocal, but you hear all the pain in her voice, and it's awesome. This one needs to make a live comeback, I think. She only did it on the Blonde Ambition tour. I know it wasn't a hit, but I would love to hear this live.
If I'm not mistaken, I read some reviews that said that it almost felt like she on purpose did those tweaks in her voice to show that power and to show the personality of this song.
I'm sure she did.
Yeah, it's a moving song by far.
Oh yeah, definitely a highlight for me. But fortunately, we get that pace picked up again with track number 9, Keep It Together, another tribute to Sly and the Family Stone. And this is about family. It's about specifically her brothers and sisters. Madonna did grow up in a large Catholic family. So this song's actually kind of sadly ironic because Madonna's not somebody known to have the best relationship with her siblings. After all, her brother wrote a scathing tell-all called Life with My Sister Madonna in 2008. That's kind of sadly ironic, yeah. Neither of our brothers have written scathing tell-all memoirs about us yet.
Yeah, when mine comes out, it'll be New York's Best Times. New York's Times bestseller, hands down. I know Dustin's listening. Don't you dare write that. Don't you dare write that. And if you do, I will co-write it with you.
Yeah, Madonna didn't co-write that book with her brother, obviously, but hey, he hates her, still made money off of her name, so. But anyway, this song was specifically influenced by the Sly and the Family Stone song Family Affair. I just love how funky this song is, and it's so optimistic. It's just a nice burst of energy. Prince plays guitar on this song during the bridge, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I think it's a nice message. I think this is a nice song and a more obvious single, of course.
I'm totally with you there. A more obvious single. For me, I didn't get the family references off the bat, but first listen, one of my notes is that it's an I'll take the 80s out of it. I had wrote 80s pop track, but it's a pop track that, and in no way against the song, but it's a pop track that could say anything and it's still going to hit with the same power. You could put any other lyrics over this song, in my opinion, musically, and it's still going to just hit with that perfect pop nuance. It's another one of those songs that's perfectly produced as well. And then to learn that it was about her family and about keeping it together with them adds so much more to the song.
Yeah, this song slaps. It's once again a co-write with Stephen Bray, who also did Express Yourself and several other Madonna hits. This ended up being the last time that they collaborated, sadly, but I think they went out with a bang with these two songs. And like I said, this was a more obvious single, but yet in territories, North America or not, Oh Father was only a single in North America and Japan, and Dear Jessie outside of that. But Keep It Together was right there, and it was released only as a single in North America, US, Canada, and Japan. And It did well. It made it up to number 8 on the Hot 100, which returned Madonna to the top 10. It became her 18th top 10 hit, which made her the female artist with the most top 10 hits ever.
Wow.
In less than a decade. Very impressive work right there. And it made it to the top 10 without a video even being made. This song did get an amazing performance on the Blonde Ambition tour, which I'm going to highlight because it's really the closest that we got to a video for the song. It was her encore for the tour right after she performed Holiday, and she came out wearing a cabaret-inspired outfit, and Madonna herself described the performance as Bob Fosse meets Clockwork Orange.
I can see that. I can see that. It's a perfect way to put it.
She said the performance had a message about the tour family, and it began with her singing a bit of Sly and the Family Stone's Family Affair. It's a pretty epic performance and encore. I suggest you watch it if you haven't. It is featured in Truth or Dare. So there's that. But I think this song should still be more well-remembered today. This isn't one of her more well-remembered hits, but there is a legitimate reason for that. So, when this song was due to be released as a single, Madonna was to record a separate B-side for it. And she'd done that with Cherish. She recorded Supernatural, which is a song about her screwing a ghost, which it's interesting, but definitely a B-side. But for this B-side, she decided to work with her pal Shep Pettibone, who had done the Express Yourself remixes and the Like a Prayer ones. And long story short, Madonna and Shep created a song called Vogue.
Vogue was the B-side to this?
Well, no, because once Vogue was heard, it was said, this is not a B-side.
Hell no.
And no, Vogue was not a B-side. And as a result of Vogue being recorded, it was decided, no, this needs to be Madonna's next single. So this song was not even released in many territories as a result of Vogue being recorded.
How long did they sit on Vogue after this before her next album?
Months. The next album was the I'm Breathless album, which was a soundtrack to the Dick Tracy movie she starred in with Warren Beatty. And most of that album is completely different than Vogue, but they needed a place to put Vogue because they could not sit on that track.
So Vogue came out on the Dick Tracy soundtrack?
Yes.
That's awesome. I love that soundtrack. I mean,
it's pretty cool, but Vogue is the final track on it. And it did completely overshadow Keep It Together. In fact, Keep It Together was released in Australia as a single with Vogue, but obviously Vogue was the single. And I'm not going to say the wrong decision was made. I mean, it is Vogue that we're talking about. Come on.
Yeah.
It's an iconic, awesome song, but Keep It Together still deserves some more love, but it just got completely overshadowed by an absolute monster of a track that no song had a chance again, frankly.
That's wild. That's a cool one. Also, I can't stop thinking of Breathless Mahoney right now, but that's a totally different topic.
Another movie soundtrack we'll have to do. I'm Breathless.
It took the words right out of my mouth. Don't get me started on Dick Tracy. Go on. Let's keep this rolling.
We'll get there. I'd love to talk about Madonna again because I've had so much fun doing this, but we're still not done in Like a Prayer land. So after Keep It Together, we're back to a more somber moment, another ballad. This is Pray for Spanish Eyes. I don't know if it was officially said, but I do believe that this song is about friends that Madonna lost to AIDS. Especially, but he was a man, because the men lost to AIDS were dehumanized. That made that pretty clear to me. This is a heartbreaker of a song. I do think that it's a beautiful track. I don't think it could have been a single, but it's a really pretty song.
Getting ahead of myself, it could have easily been a B-side for Keep It Together.
It was actually the B-side for Oh Father.
Oh, really? Okay. Heard.
Yeah. But the craziest B-side is this. I forgot to say this. Guess what the B-side to Dear Jessie was?
What?
Till Death Do Us Part.
Really?
Yeah, talk about two very different songs there.
Jeez, a whiz.
Yeah. No, Keep It Together's B-side ended up just being the instrumental track of Keep It Together because they knew Vogue is not a B-side.
Yeah.
But
you said it, though, that for being an AIDS remembrance and a ballad at that, it's such a musically pleasing and beautiful song.
yeah, she uses a lot of Latin guitar in here. She done that successfully before, of course, with La Isla Bonita. Yeah, it's a really pretty song and a great vocal, too. You hear the passion in it. Yeah, this one's had to grow on me over the years because when I was 10, I didn't quite grasp what it was about, of course. But now that I know it and I've heard it a lot, I really enjoyed this song a lot. It's not in my top 5 on the album, but
No.
it's still a really cool song. And honestly, it's better than some of the best songs on later albums by Madonna, if we're going to be honest. So Pray for Spanish Eyes is a winner in my book. Doesn't shine as brightly as some of the other tracks, but still a good, worthy song.
Definitely a beautiful one.
And then the album ends with Act of Contrition. This has Madonna saying the Lord's Prayer over a scramble of the guitars from the title track. Once again played by Prince, of course. And I didn't get this for a long time. I thought this interlude was so pointless and stupid when I first started. I was like, why is she yelling out, what do you mean it's not in the computer? What's this reservation? And then I realized, oh, she's trying to get into heaven.
Is that the consensus? Because that's where I was as well, but I thought I had come up with some shit nobody's heard before.
I think it is heaven. That feels pretty clear to me. I don't see what else it could be because you wouldn't be saying the Lord's Prayer to get into a restaurant.
Of course. Or even an act of contrition. So for anybody that's listening that doesn't realize what an act of contrition is, long story short, it's a prayer that while you're saying it, the priest sees over you saying it. You're saying it out loud, and you're saying it as you're saying, I'm with you. I'm with you, God. I'm with you all the way. So knowing what that was, when I saw the title for this track at the end of this album, I was intrigued, to say the least. It's an out there track, but weirdly enough, it makes a powerful narrative in its all over the boardness, It's everywhere. I know I do this a lot, but it has that Revolution number 9 kind of weirdness to it, and then it comes together as a cohesive thought about getting into heaven.
Yeah. But fortunately, it's nowhere near as long as Revolution number 9.
Of course.
Because that is too long. This is under 3 minutes. It really, love it or hate it, I've come to really like it. It's not a song I go out of my way to listen to a lot, but I think it's a great album ender for iconic album for Madonna. I think it's a perfect ending to the album. And it's funny now with the Act of Contrition because recently Madonna tweeted at the Pope that she wanted to meet him and that she hadn't been to confession in a few decades.
See, this is another podcast. Don't get me started there. But perfect ender to an album. You know me, I'm a stickler for it. I think it's one of the most perfect caps on any album that I've heard. Cap it off right at the end with something that's going to make me listen, no matter if I want to or not. And then is actually going to have a narrative and a finality of the album being that gates of heaven image in my brain. Perfect ending. And while we're talking about it and we're going through this, I'm looking back through, and I didn't have this thought while I was putting together my notes, but there's not only an anecdotal feeling and flow to the songs from start to finish, but almost a narrative in just their titles and in just themselves, as far as almost like a birth to death type of narrative. Starting with Like a Prayer and ending with Spanish Eyes. It's almost like we've lived a whole lifetime with Madonna in this one album. It's genius.
Yeah. And I'll say this, I can't imagine my lifetime without this album. So
Heard.
That's just me. I love this one. What is your grade for the album?
My grades changed. I came in this with a B, and I'm coming back up and giving it an A minus. There's so much genius that I feel like we've unearthed just in the way that I'm looking at this album, just from talking to you, especially you, being someone that knows more on this album. But it's definitely up there, A minus. I mean, period. It's pop perfection. And then on top of that, so many layers that I'll probably be diving into after we finish this, in all honesty.
Yeah, this is an easy A for me. Not even a contest. I don't dislike any of the songs here. I think there's just so many layers, and just the more I go back, the more that I find. I think this album is brilliant and just the perfect case for the genius of Madonna. Whether you love her or hate her, she's somebody who just about everybody has an opinion on.
Yeah.
But this album makes a case for her place in our culture, I believe.
Yeah. She's geniusly divisive.
Yes.
And sometimes you don't know if she's being divisive on purpose, but it doesn't matter. And that's the genius behind it, or inside of it, period.
Yes. And one more thing I will say before our next question, that is, Madonna did re-sign to Warner Brothers to release expanded editions of her albums. I definitely can't wait for the expanded edition of this. I'd love to hear what else was being done during these sessions. I think that would be super cool. And Warner Brothers has done a good job with their deluxe reissues of Prince and Fleetwood Mac albums. So I'm very excited for the whole campaign, but especially this album. What's your favorite track on the album?
Whew. I didn't write it down. Again, I like to not write it down these days and go through and really give it the final. But I'm going to have to go with Cherish as my favorite song on this album. It's perfection. You see it few and far between, but it is pop perfection in my book.
Yeah, that one's a close second for me, but I already said mine was the title track. That's just...
Heard that.
Never get tired of it. That's a perfect song right there. It was ranked number 55 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs Ever, and even though that's timeless, it still felt too low to me. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I feel you there, especially as a fan. But 55, that's up there. Good for her. Good for that song. Good for Rolling Stones to see that genius.
Yeah, they actually had pretty decent updated lists for the 500 Greatest Songs and Albums. A lot less white male centric, which was very good to see. So
there you go.
Good on Rolling Stone for that and for recognizing Madonna as she should be recognized. And unfortunately, that does it for Like a Prayer. I'm sad to be leaving Madonna land, but I'm sure we will return at some point.
I'll tell you what, keep an eye out for that Dick Tracy breakdown, because I think that's a perfect vessel for us to stick some Madonna back in.
Oh, yeah.
But you never know.
Yeah, I would definitely pick her to discuss on here again. I'd pick her again in the 90s if it weren't so close together, but I'm not going to do that, I promise. But in the meantime, we are leaving Madonna land, and next week we're really shifting gears. We will be discussing Metallica's 1986 album, Master of Puppets. The title track recently had a big surge thanks to a show called Stranger Things, and I am very excited to announce that my buddy Justin Sutphin will be appearing with us to discuss this album. He is a Metallica expert, and so it will be good to get some insight from an expert on Metallica, because definitely outside of my comfort zone, but I'm curious to hear it. It only makes us better listeners when we step outside of our comfort zones.
Oh, yeah. I love them, but I'm nowhere near an expert, so I'm excited about this. A third voice. Spilling tea.
Yes, for the first time ever. I can't wait. And hopefully the first of many. There's a few people who've offered to appear on this with us. I hope to have them all.
Most definitely.
But in the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Turntables and Tea Podcast for updates and content related to the show. And also follow us wherever you're listening to us, whether it be Spotify, Apple, Amazon. We're on all of them. And I really hope that we took you there with our take on Like a Prayer. Really enjoyed doing this one a lot. And I'm looking forward to next week, too. So, in the meantime, just keep on praying, I guess, because, it's like a prayer. It'll take you there.
Peace.